scholarships to University in Richmond, Virginia from 1901 to 1903. He then attended the University of Pittsburgh and graduated from his law school in 1909. In 1910, he was one of only 5 Black attorneys in Pittsburgh, a city of over 25,000 African Americans. He brought a small newspaper and developed it into the Pittsburgh Courier, which became the largest weekly newspaper in the world, employing over 100 people. He used his newspaper as a tool for social progress by covering injustices faced by African Americans.
There's the man.
He wrote to gain support for causes such as improved housing conditions, better education for Black students, and equal employment and union opportunities.
There's the man.
In 1943, the World War II ship SS Robert RLVann was named in his honor and launched in Portland, Maine, which his widow, Jessie Matthews Vann, attended the launch. The ship was hit by a torpedo and sank in 1945. Robert RLVann used his influence, talents, and his newspaper to advance the causes of civil rights.
Amen.
He died in 1940 at the age of 61. There are 2 schools named in his honor: Robert RLVann Elementary School in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and our beloved Robert RLVann School here in Ahoskie, North Carolina.
Amen.
It is our mission to restore these grounds as a community with your assistance, to the honor and glory worthy of the name Robert RLVann.
Amen, amen.
Thank you.
The school. Prior to 1898, there was a school constructed to serve the educational needs of the Black student and was known as Ahoskie Graded School. Its earliest location was on the site of the new Ahoskie Baptist Church ground, where we are today. The school building was moved to the present location in the summer of 1920. In 1934, the construction of a single-story building, brick classroom building, and an auditorium was begun. The building was constructed without central heat, and there was a cast-on pump belly in each room, and 2 of the same auditorium. Coal was used as its fuel. In 1934 to 1972, Professor H.C. Cooper was the president. We all remember
Mama.
1940 to 1941, the school was named RLVann High School in honor of the owner and publisher of the Pittsburgh Herald newspaper. RLVann was born in Ahoskie, North Carolina, August 29, 1879. The school song, "Oh No School," words by Julie K. Newsom, a student, and tuned by Ivy Sherman, and teacher, and later Dr. Herman Mitchell got rearranged. 1979 to 2000, Miss Kathy Arts, Cecilia was the minister of literature, and she became the founding president of RLVann University. On December 6, 2000, RLVann Reunion Committee paid for the property and was granted ownership of the 4th grade building, where we now is on the right-hand side. Now, with the help of the county commissioners and the county, we own all the property.
Amen. All right.
Thanks to Shaw, got the deed. They need to us their side, but there's more work to be done.
Amen. Amen. All right.
We have a ceremony, please.
Praise the Lord, everyone. My name is Jackie Yusuf Williams. And I'm happy to be home.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
It shows the dedication of people
Let me see.
that want to see vision come to pass. That's a blessing. Too much is given, much is expected.
Amen.
And what I'm hearing from everyone here and seeing your commitment to it. I am a student of RLVann and didn't really realize it until I had to have a background check. Background check was and learned that most of my years were at home, more than any other student in the house. And so, with that being said, I did graduate, but I ain't a student. That I was trained and so I'm very, very happy to
But I
be
can,
here.
I can,
My mother
I think I can choose.
for many years. Also, attended RLVann, graduated. She was the valedictorian, her class, before she graduated. And so I know Mama would want me to be here to support this worthy cause, and I'm very happy to be here to do so. And so I am asking for everyone to come out and support this vision.
Bless Charlie.
We need you. We need boots on the ground. There is not anything that we cannot do to help in some way. Money is good, but hands, boots on the ground are also important too. We need legal assistance, communication, marketing, management, whatever talent you have, we need. So I am asking for your support, and I'm believing in God we have your existence. I'm calling it into existence. Power is in words. And so I thank you for coming out. Coming out says a lot. Your being here says a lot. And so I'm looking forward to seeing you. And we shall see this. So we want your input. So thank you all. God bless you. I love you. And I'm looking forward to working with you with this project.
While we're waiting for the next transition of I'm looking around and I'm seeing a lot of places I've been going from the hospital. Years. So I don't recognize all this. If you understand, I might not know. But I just want to kind of see who's in the. There's certain names that you call and you know somebody from RLVann nickname that name. I'm gonna start with the name is. Okay. Somebody else give me a name. You know that name. Thomas and Green.
Yeah, you can read me. I can do it.
Brown. What else? Clark.
I got it.
Yeah, Nicholas, yes. Early. Settle, yes.
Jones and Morris.
Jones and Morrison, yes. Gatlin. Finance, Futrell. Towers, yeah. Yes, indeed. Askew. All of them. Harold's. Who's that? Gordon, yes. James, Solomon, Outlaw, Ferguson, Morris, Warren, Tan, Ward, wow, Burns, all of these are and all of us got something, more than something. We got a lot, considering what we had to do. You know, I think I was probably in college before I saw a teacher who didn't already have housing. At other schools, they bring the classroom. We had to talk to use them. You know, we had what we had, but we were the biology room. I really enjoyed it. Whatever we do. And we had like one or two birds and we had a cafeteria that was, they built a new teeny thing. We come through with our place and had to walk back to our classrooms. Wind, rain, snow, whatever, a napkin, because we didn't have cafeteria support. But boy, we were doing good. So, you know, we had a lot of things to remember about Robert L. Vann that have carried us on through the years. And so it's something that we don't want to see put aside. You know, there are places so just want to say that and say thank you. Praises, yes. A lot of names. Always, remember those names.
That's it. We're focused on the presentation.
We're now going high tech. And so this is coming into us from Chicago.
Joe, screen.
You got him?
Hello, hello.
We hear you, but not hearing out here.
Okay, let me see. Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I am Kevin Lamar James. I am the son of Jerome James and Diana James, and the brother of Jerome Jr. Want to make sure you can connect me with the right branch of the Jameses, because we can all start to look alike when you get us together. So I am here today really as a supporter of Robert L. Vann Project, because I did not attend that school. I walked past it, rode my bike past it, walked through to play on the playgrounds, but I never attended. And this project has helped me to learn more about my own family history, learning about my grandmother and my mother as teachers at the school. My brother attended, my father graduated from there. So these are all stories that are new in my awareness. And I think that there are a lot of people right here in our hometown that have similar stories and they don't know it. And so this legacy is very rich in our community. And I'm so grateful to work alongside all of the folks who have been sort of steering it thus far, to share any insights that I've had in my experience that may be able to help. And so with that, I want to introduce to you Dr. Alma Powell as our speaker today to share a little bit about what has happened in her community of South Bend, Indiana. So my very first full-time job as a professor was at Indiana University in South Bend. after my first semester of teaching courses on race and social problems and social movements, the vice president had asked if I would be the director of a new civil rights center at the natatorium. Now, there were a couple of problems there for me because first, I didn't know what a natatorium was. And so when they told me that it was basically an indoor swimming pool, I said, oh no, I know I can't do that because I don't even know how to swim. And they said, well, there is no pool. The pool is gone. I said, okay, continue. And they said the building is to preserve that legacy of that civil rights struggle from African-American residents who fought to make it available for Blacks who paid taxes to fund that pool to actually be able to use it. And so that became a site for the civil rights movement, and that community had to struggle with, do we tear this building down because it's in disrepair, it's just sitting here, it'll never be a pool again? And some people said it's that erasing the hurt, erasing the pain. And then others said, we need to preserve that to tell the story of our community and to tell the story of those who come before us to give us the rights and privileges we do. And we need to remember that and to teach that so that we don't repeat it. And so I want to just set that up to say, when I learned about the Robert L. Vann NC project, I was thrilled because this gives a perfect example of what Ahoskie can do with Robert L. Vann campus. This community in South Bend didn't know what to do, and the only thought was to tear it down. And what we want to share with you is how this project will happen with the community support, and it can reflect many of the things that you see here and other things that are specific to Ahoskie. So with that, let me stop talking here and begin to introduce Dr. Alma Powell. She was on the Community Advisory Board as one of the leaders to get the community to begin supporting that Civil Rights Heritage Center project. It took 2 or 3 years of work getting that support in the community, writing for different grants, and doing the renovation. And she was a part of that from the beginning. So I wanted her to be here today to share a little bit of her insight that would help us as we embark on this journey in Ahoskie. So with that, Dr. Powell, would you join us on the call?
I'm here.
All right.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Am I in?
Yes, let's talk.
Okay. The mouse at the seashore. A mouse told his mother and father that he was going on a trip to the seashore. We are alarmed, they cried. The world is full of terrors. You must not go. I have made my decision, said the mouse firmly. I have never seen the ocean, and it is high time that I did. Nothing can make me change my mind. Then we cannot stop you, said Mother and Father Mouse, but do be careful. The next day, in the first light of dawn, the mouse began his journey. Even before the morning had ended, the mouse came to know trouble and fear. A cat jumped out from behind a tree. I will eat you for lunch, the cat said. It was a narrow escape for the mouse. He ran for his life, but he left a part of his tail in the mouth of the cat. By afternoon, the mouse had been attacked by birds and dogs. He had lost his way several times. He was bruised and bloodied. He was tired and frightened. At evening, the mouse slowly climbed the last hill and saw the seashore spreading out before him. He watched the waves rolling onto the beach, one after another. All the colors of the sunset filled the sky. How beautiful, cried the mouse. I wish that Mother and Father were here to see this one with me. The moon and the stars began to appear over the ocean. The mouse sat silently on the top of the hill. He was overwhelmed by a feeling of deep peace and contentment. The moral of the story, my friends, from Ahoskie, all the miles to happiness. I should. First of all, let me thank Kevin for the opportunity, because it gave me an opportunity to learn about Ahoskie, the place that Kevin always talked about. So I heard about it being called the only one because it's the only town in this United States named after that, and about the East End Pride population. I learned that 63% of your population is African American descent. That is a railroad lumber town. Just learned so much about Ahoskie. But what impressed me more, and what I noticed here today as different speakers got up, is just the pride you have in the community and the pride you have in this individual called RLVann. So being a teacher and educator, what I did was also go and look up RLVann and found out so many exciting things about this man. I found out, I had already heard of the Pittsburgh Courier, of course. One of the things that fascinated me the most was that he was the one that encouraged African Americans, Black people, to leave the Republican Party. I learned that he was an advertising genius, that he was a civil rights icon, and that there's even a marker, I guess, there honoring RLVann for his work in civil rights. He was a champion of misrepresentation. So I see why you're here today and why everyone is so proud of the project that you've taken on. Thank you for sharing that with me and having that opportunity. So you're thinking, well, what does that story have to do? Why did this lady read this story? And Kevin has already alluded to the fact that we share a similar achievement. Kevin and I did back in the natatorium, a similar achievement that you're going to be sharing with people across the United States when you finish with this project. Kevin did highlight some of the natatorium story. The natatorium was built in South Bend in 1922. And the irony is right up across the top, and you can't see it from the pictures there, but it said public natatorium. And that was the irony, because it was public for everybody but Black folks in South Bend. Everyone could go. So members of our community, like members of RLVann community, people who are taking that name on, those of you who are there, those of you who are spearheading this project, got together and said, we want people granted an opportunity to swim there one time a week. And then that changed, and they were able to go back the first Monday. And then finally, it was 1950 before they ended the desegregation of the pool. Now, this situation at the natatorium is different than your RLVann school, but you will see as we go on and talk that it's very similar in terms of goals and searching for achievement. What happened in 1950 when they ended desegregation, of course, then what happened is the pool went down and ran down. And because, so many Black people were going there, and the city voted not to put money into revamping it and getting it closed, getting it reorganized and fixed, the pool closed in 1978. And that's shortly after that when the work started, and when they started to want to take the wrecking ball to that building and tear it down. And similar, I guess, again, what we want to keep happening at RLVann. It was interesting in that a lot of things happened. A lot of people were turned away. People had fun there when they were finally allowed to enter. People were treated with disrespect, but people also won their civil rights there. People achieved as they have out of RLVann school, and people faced challenges as they have out of that school. All of these things happened to people at RLVann, the hidden stories that I pray that your revamping of this building will be brought out. As the earmark on this journey, What's going to happen, folks? What's going to happen as you go on this journey, because it happened in South Bend, Indiana, cats will jump out from behind the tree and part of your tail will end up in their mouth, because you'll think they'll be positive, you think they'll want to be involved, and they just aren't. Let me tell you a story about how we just thought we were all of that and getting things done. So we had this big public meeting, and this nurse, this RN, stood up in the community and said, what I want y'all to do is tear that building down, because every time I think about it, I think about how I was denied access to that building, that I couldn't even swim there. This, caught us off guard. We don't want you to be caught off guard. So one of the things that you have to do, number one, is learn the history of RLVann, and it seems like you already have. You need to get names and stories. We got names and stories about situations at the natatorium. We got architectural facts. We made contacts with experts on building structural assessments. We got information from local experts. And then we also had emotional stories about things that happen at the natatorium. You get that when you dig back in the history of RLVann school. You get these emotional stories. One of the biggest emotional stories that we had that happened around the time that they were trying to open it up is we in South Bend actually had 2 young Black boys that died trying to swim in a stone quarry. And so that was one of the emotional stories. And so as you go and look at RLVann, getting people involved will certainly be one of the ways to just build that feeling for the need to save this edifice, to save it. So I talked about learning the history. The second thing is to establish a purpose. That's what we did at the natatorium. We wanted it to be community-wide and of educational use. We met with community groups, we established subcommittees. We knew that it would be a civil rights based on the outstanding history of the building, the outstanding history of segregation. So we knew we wanted it to center on civil rights. What will you want your RLVann building to be? Probably centered on education, but also civil rights, because there's certainly some issues that came out there. There's some things that we decided right ahead of time that you will do, things that you knew that you did not want to, that we knew we did not want to happen at the natatorium. We didn't want it to be for social events, but we wanted it to be free for organizational use. And so therefore, a lot of people in the community were brought into that building as a result of it being a place for organizations to meet. So I talked about establishing a purpose. One of the things that we really did in South Bend was garner support from the community. And so it means that you need to garner Ahoskie and Hertford County community-wide support. You want to find the descendants of people who were there. We found descendants of people who swam there. You've already done an excellent job of finding descendants of people who went to school there. In fact, I even heard about I think it was a Timmy Newsom that was an outstanding football player. But as I'm talking, you'll see all of the different projects and things that we went through. And so make sure that you are gathering pictures and data as you go along the way. So again, here we are in South Bend, taking this old natatorium, trying to revamp it like you're going to do with the RLVann building. But in that story, midway, the birds and the dogs attacked. And that's what happened with us midway. I'm not going to say that it's going to happen at RLVann, but we had some dogs and cats and whatever that continued to attack. Believe it or not, ours happened to be the university and some alternative plans. So how did we get rid of them? The same way you're going to get rid of them, by thinking about it. We stress the need for the civil rights theme. You'll stress the need for the theme of what you want to have happen at RLVann. We revved up search for financial support by organizing and naming opportunities. For example, you can see them working on a wall out there. We had people buy a space on that wall to have their name. And I'm sure you'll have alums from RLVann that will want to do that. And then by afternoon, the mouse was tired and bloodied and felt like giving up on his search for the seashore. Folks, you're going to be bloodied and you're going to be tired and you're going to feel like giving up. We got tired, but every time we did, something happened to give us energy. Every time we got tired. One of the things that happened in terms of the university, the staff was all behind the natatorium. So they collected 100 pennies to pay for the building because the university only had to pay $1 for the building. They collected 100 pennies. The mayor voiced support of the natatorium. People told stories about the natatorium experience, and that was, I think, one of the key factors will be people telling stories about RLVann. What happened was it was becoming such a popular idea is that we almost got into some competition of who was going to be the leader of the natatorium, whether it would be the South Bend Heritage Foundation or the city, or whether it would be actually Indiana University. Hopefully, prayerfully, you will get that way in RLVann. The Savior came and ran the dogs and the community, but students was staff at University Center. They decided that we wanted to use the center as living history to promote a better understanding of individual responsibility, race relations, social change, and minority achievement. The first project was the recording of oral histories. So I urge you, start collecting some oral histories of people who went to RLVann. You will not be that. Let me give you an example. There's a gentleman here, his name is John Charles Bryan. John Charles, bless his heart, passed away about 1.5 years ago. But we had this oral history of John Charles, who was an African-American man who knew everything about South Bend. And when he passed away, we were looking for information still about the natatorium, about South Bend. And we could go back and listen to some of the talks that John Charles gave. So start right now collecting some of those histories from people who went to RLVann, from people who are there in your audience. I had an opportunity to hear many of you speak, and the applause that you gave when you even talked about a principal, the enthusiasm that's there in that audience. Someone said there's more work to be done. Yes, there is more work to be done. And the cats and the dogs and all of them are going to be trying to nip at your tail, but there's more work to be done. Someone said we need you, and that money is good, is needed, but also hands are needed. And I love the person that had names being yelled out. So you have what it takes going, and people who even gave up their Saturday to come and be with you this morning. So I want to share with you again, now that I've read that story, the last 3 paragraphs to just sort of wrap up what I have to say. At evening, the mouse slowly climbed the last hill and saw the seashore spreading out before him. He watched the waves rolling onto the beach, one after another. All the colors of the sunset filled the sky. How beautiful, cried the people at Ahoskie. I wish that mother and father and all of those people who went to RLVann would be here to see this with me, how this building has been renovated. The moon and the stars began to appear over the RLVann building. The mouse sat silently on top of the hill. The community members of Ahoskie sat quietly on top of the hill. The people were overwhelmed by a feeling of deep peace and contentment because they had saved RLVann school. All of the miles of a hard road are worth a moment of true happiness as you look and see what you've done to achieve this goal. So Kevin, I will turn it over to you to share, and we can share with our members there some of the outstanding projects and some of the things that we did at the Civil Rights Heritage Center.
Thank you so much for your words and encouragement. There was a part of it that cut out, but you were so skillful. You brought it right back to that story at the end so we could hear the moral. And thank you so much. I do want to keep you on in case if there are other ways you want to chime in. We do have a couple of other people on the Zoom. If you all want to engage in this discussion, feel free. What I would like to do at this point is to now frame this around RLVann. We've seen a glimpse of a transformation in South Bend, which, by the way, I have to go back and point out Mayor Pete Buttigieg in the bottom photo here, who would come to our events at the natatorium. It's important to get your local government involved and any of your state leaders that are able to come to events. Pete Buttigieg was made it a point to be there when we had events. This one was Trailblazers, a program designed to honor and give flowers and recognition to those people who've had a great impact, Black residents in that neighborhood that have had a great impact on the development of that city. And so each year they take names and begin to review, their contributions, and then we award them at the natatorium, and it's a wonderful celebration. So, just as you go from that transformation to this one, these are scary images to see. We know how much it costs to put down flooring in a 1,000 square foot or 2,000 square foot place. But when you look at 3 buildings of windows, walls, and floors, and piping and electrical, and the things that may be needed, it is incumbent upon us to think about, as Alma said, what do we desire to happen in the community that this space can help to facilitate for us? And in the case of the natatorium, and I'll skip back a couple of pictures here, that swimming pool from after 78, when it had closed on the right, and it was in disrepair, is what this space of ground is. They did not redevelop that part of the pool because the cost would have been too high and it wouldn't have served the purpose that they had in mind. So the goal was to leave it as a sunken garden area because that was the deep end of the pool, as a way to reflect back on that past. A lot of the things in the garden were words like peace, joy, courage, unity, equality. There's also a quote inscribed by Martin Luther King: "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." That's at the very front walkway. And so there are markers that have been built into the space that honor the past of it. And I encourage, this community to think about some of these aspects of the property may not be redeveloped to its former use or how it looked. Portions may be redeveloped or turned into something that honors what that space used to be. In that case, it allows you to make better decisions around having to put, who knows, $1 million plus into a project with this scope and turning it into something that would be readily useful day by day. And so I pulled a few images here. Those of you who are going over there at 1 o'clock will be able to see what it looks like now. I'm sure these are a little older, but thinking about this space in terms of what could it be? We've heard people talk about housing and apartments. We've seen that with Ahoskie High School. That is an idea for conversions in a lot of other cities. However, that doesn't mean RLVann project needs to do that. You could, but there are many community group usages, educational use, as has already been demonstrated, but also thinking about the community members that are there now. What sort of things is this community seeking to address in terms of economic support, job training, and workforce development? Continuing with education, but what are some of those life skills trainings that are needed, whether they're in the trades or in the professional realm? Recently, I've seen from Chowan that they have taken on a new vision to focus on life skills training. Now, Indiana University in South Bend was the main driver of that project, but it was also the city of South Bend, the South Bend Heritage Foundation that was managing the architectural redesign of the place. And so it will need some champions from the city and from some other anchor institution that, such as Chowan, that on a semester by semester basis could have classes that are supporting certain projects that are being developed, like internships or service learning. So we had the logo for the natatorium it reflects the story of a woman, Barbara Brandy, who was a little girl wearing a red bathing suit. Her mother took her to the natatorium, but it wasn't one of the days designated for Blacks to swim. So they turned her away. And so we had a partnership with Notre Dame. Their business department used this as a project for their students to develop a logo, to do some signage and wayfinding projects. And that was to help them develop their skills to be able to go into a facility and to create a flow, to create a thing through signage and other branding. So this logo came from a group of students at Notre Dame. We had a bunch of different submissions. We were able to work with them, give them feedback. And at the end, we selected this one. And so there are many ways that you can engage various communities, whether it's RCCC or any other group. We developed an African American landmark tour. I've heard right in the neighborhood around the school, it is considered a historic area. And in that part of town and on the East End, there are a lot of things that need to be told about the people and the places and the things, the corner stores that provided for all of us, the teachers and the people who help build that community that we hold near and dear. And so there were 13 landmark signs that we had funding to go around the west side of South Bend and other places to mark sites of significance for African American history. People could go aim their phone at a QR code on the screen and read about and even listen to the history. And so it was a self-guided tour. And those things were all critical in helping us to really build a set of resources that we can offer the community at large. We didn't start with all of those things. It was through these partnerships that we were able to get funding from the African American Grant Association to do the landmark tour. And, the list goes on and on. So I do want to bring it back here to us to think about what will be our stories that we want to emphasize. We've already heard a little bit about the community aspect. When you talk about Robert L. Vann, you have to talk about the community. You have to talk about New Ahoskie Baptist Church, so fitting that it's there. These people who founded the church, founded the school, did other things are our ancestors or relatives if they're still alive. And so to think about telling the story of these places, we are telling the story of our own families and how we came to build this community. And when these things fade, the building fades, the kids growing up today don't see the glory and the pride that I see of all the Robert L. Vann alumni. I've been watching you all online, sharing your stories and being committed. And this is a way to bring the community along to take on this legacy and to really have that pride of who we are and what we've done and where we come from. And to be able to say, and look at us now, we're in Chicago and Colorado and California and Ghana overseas, that we from this small town of Ahoskie have spread out across the world, that sometimes we can have a smaller mentality or thinking in the community, but this is a way to begin to bring that community up as we rise together. The school is certainly important in terms of the alumni, the Trojans, the experience of those different grade levels that have gone through there, the periods when folks were not able to even get a diploma, and explaining the history around that time. And then when did they get to begin to receive diplomas? And following that history to really appreciate that while slavery was not present in Ahoskie, from my understanding of the history, we still had to struggle and work through issues of race. That did not allow us to escape dealing with Jim Crow, racism, and segregation and other things that we know were present. But how this school story is told and why the people are so proud, and to show where we have gone on to have an impact, really brings a lot of pride to that school. And so our stories could reflect what is it that we want of that school, and it may be to incorporate an educational component to maintain that history in some way. So there is that aspect. We don't talk enough about the person of Robert RLVann, and I think we all learn things every time someone shares about him, that he as an individual was born and raised and grew up here. And later the school was named after him, but to learn about his impact in the area of civil rights and journalism is huge. Perhaps this redevelopment can leave space for civil rights activities, to leave space for journalism, writing, literature, and maybe a printing press, maybe a community newspaper. There are all sorts of things to think about as we unpack the person. I have to throw in, I believe I heard he was an Alpha Phi Alpha, and so I have to also say that's a reason to call out some attention.
Of course you do.
So I put a question mark here because I really want everyone to think about, when you see this, maybe some of the things that you want fit into these buckets, but we don't have all of these buckets figured out. We need to hear from you all what you desire to see happen in this place. And we'll have to keep having these conversations. We'll take notes. And as we get there, it will reflect what we've been hearing this community say. Not something that a committee of people has already decided and you don't really have any choice. That's not the case at all. This group is open to your input, to your involvement. I should probably pause here because I'm not in the room with you. Perhaps there are a few of you who would like to weigh in at this point. Is there an element that we have not covered that you see as being integral to this project and that we need to consider and develop our understanding around this other piece, or how we involve these other people? What would go there? What would we look at later and say, wow, we left off a big piece of that story? And this is where we get to pull in other perspectives. So I'll stop here for a moment and just see if there's anyone in the room that wants to contribute here. So I cannot see you all, and I don't know if I muted the person that has the audio. So let's just double check on that. Okay, I don't see anything, so I'm gonna move here, but once you get yourselves organized, just interrupt me and we'll bring it back to you, okay? Okay, I see something's happening here, thank you.
Go back to Ahoskie this year. And I assume my dates, I've been looking at the t-shirts. I assume about 53 years ago, back this time of year, Bev and I began attending RLVann school. What were the circumstances 53 years ago? It was integration. So we came to RLVann with a lot of other white students for the very first time. School with Jacqueline, others here, for the very first time. And I think we were 10, 11 years old. And my dad, Vernon Baker, was the very first white principal at RLVann school. Mr. Cooper. And as an 10 or 11-year-old, those were very good memories back then. We've been overseas, and I tell this story, and people overseas are really interested in what happened in integration. And my story was, we really did well as a kid. I don't remember as a 11-year-old all the tumultuous things that you see in the news, documentaries. But we as a community came together for our kids, because I was one of those children. But he and Dr. Cooper were very good friends. So as we look back on RLVann, positive thing for our community, for us to highlight the campus there. So that's a little bit of looking back. I have very fond memories being attending RLVann. Looking forward a little bit is now that Bev and I are back, we're working with a poverty relief organization called Together for Hope through the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship. And we're looking for opportunities for temporary housing for people getting back on their feet. There's very little opportunities in our area for that. And Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, we're looking for areas and places in our town, our area, actually to provide temporary affordable housing for people trying to get back on their feet. And they have some funding as well. So if the vision of RLVann going forward would be to incorporate some of that on the campus, I know we would be very interested in being a part of that discussion to make that a part of the legacy of RLVann going forward. Please, we're looking forward to discussion of how it goes forward.
Red clock, we were talking about this clock right now.
I also attended RLVann High School, first and second grade for integration. I remember vividly Trojan marching band practice each afternoon when they were marching. Miss Hazel Harold would just stop and let us listen to it. She knew we were not paying attention and was marching by. But I believe that revitalization of RLVann is occurring at a time when the sense of community has changed quite drastically here in Ahoskie and Griffin County at large. And what I would like to see as a part of the new mission be to present for the very young people new opportunities for greater exposure, so that we can secure grants and be able to send them on different trips, go to different parts of the country, experience new things that could give them a contract right now, social media is creating a type of climate, indoctrinating in such a way that they are departing from any sense of hope and their dreams. The other thing that wasn't mentioned in my presentation is RLVann also came at a time before God was kicked out of the schools. So what I would hope is that this organization goes forth up and running, that there can be something made to helping young people understand that they have to have a calling that is larger than themselves. Because what was symbolic of the neighborhood was the reinforcement values. So you can't spank a child anymore, but the world spanks them with no love and concern for their future. So I hope that also. I also vividly remember when we went to grade school, integration kicked in. And we used to walk by the pool. And I used to always know we didn't have a pool that we could go to. And people were having so much fun, we didn't have. And then we used to go all the way down to the shrine. And that's where we go to swim. I think in 2023, to not have a real recreation center for young folk and a pool they can attend so that they have some alternatives to sitting at home and watching video games all day so they can get out into the community and be a part of things that expand their horizon. I think that this revitalization of RLVann is God's way of infusing life back into the city so that there are good alternatives productive lives. And I plan to speak more about that tomorrow when I deliver the message here. So if you're not going to church anywhere, or if you are, take a day off, come to Ahoskie tomorrow at 10 a.m. God bless you.
Good afternoon. I'm Joseph Smith. I went to RLVann from 1965 to 69 before integration. And I'm very fortunate that one of the teachers, Ms. Loretta Lassiter, she was one of my teachers before integration. So far as I know, she is the only surviving teacher from integration. So she is someone that we have proud that we should be praised. I won't get honest I live, how they treated us there. I was home one day, playing up under the pine tree, up under the pecan tree, where we always be at my house, and we was in the yard, we was together, and she drove by and stopped by and told my mama, you know what, there's one smart child you got, he really does well in school. That was just a motivation that we came from community of looking out for each other. And just to stopping by and saying that motivated me to want to do well in school, or somebody watching, somebody that's caring for me. Now, I stayed just 2 houses down from the school, right behind the fairground with my aunt, and then I stayed at my grandma's house down there. And as we were saying, it's community matters a lot. I went to the school, as I said, but also when I didn't go to the school, during the summer, my mother would go to work, she had 7 children. But we didn't even have to worry about leaving us meals because RLVann served meals to the kids of the neighborhood during the summer. And I know we're talking about the reserves, civil rights, reserve our history, but we need to do something about the community in the present day also. And those meals came in handy, and I know to a lot of folks, maybe now, that meal don't mean a lot, but there are still some kids. That one meal, that one lunch might mean a lot to them. But maybe small meal means a lot to someone else. One of the greatest heartbreak as a student going around RLVann that I saw was when they burned down the gym. And that gym to a lot of people might have been an old building. But to us young folks that was coming out, we had a place to go. We were playing gym. They didn't keep up the rim, but that didn't matter too much to us. We just had a place that we could go. So when you talk about renovation and when you talk about preserving the past, also think about helping out the future too, helping out the ones that are here, present day should be involved into the renovation. I would love to see that gym come back. Dr. Clark said we need to get some kind of center for these kids. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, I didn't know her. I did not fit on our plan, but my little brother did. Couldn't be here today. Having a hospital call in. So I want to speak with you for everything I'm going to do with the school. In California. He loved that school. While he was there, we had a lot of fun and a lot of fun stuff with the cats. So I've got a one I came across that I live by. And this is one I came up with Dr. Johnson 2022. It says, we will never know the worth of freedom. That's something we need to build into our kids today. But slowly and slowly, we're going to lose this background, our freedom, everything. How many veterans do we have when we put them on? Big hands. Fellow veterans, thank y'all. It's our duty to serve our community every way we can. Even though we take the uniform off, we never lose our oath. That's our oath. You know, leadership is over around a lot. So every single member of this group here is a leader in their passion. There's a quote I want to read to you. I came across several years ago, and I grandson 5. And it goes like this: the challenge of leadership is to be strong but not rude, be kind but not weak, be bold but not a bully, be thoughtful but not lazy, be humble but not timid, be proud but not arrogant, have humor but without folly. That's like Jim Rohn. That's something that we take as leaders, especially in the military part, but not be overly aggressive and hungry. You know, I also remember another phrase too, called faith about what's dead. I remember that this little big Bible I used to carry in my pocket all the time. Pretty strong book. Good Bible. So, and I leave that, and I did that every single day. So, one of the things that I can do, unity, I'm going to council, use the position in that position further, trying to get grants, recognition, project, trying to do house members and Congress, trying to get some type of recognition. It is sad we don't have the same recognition as we're getting, but we're going to change that.
Good afternoon. My name is John Horton, Griffin County Commissioner, but a proud graduate of RLVann High School. I stand this morning to say just a word to sort of cover what everybody else has covered. Don't bore you. So let me say this part. If we're going to move to do something for Hereford County, I've been around local government since '86. Last 7 years, the county commissioners. And it is the most friendly board I've served. I served 28 years on the school board. But this present board is very friendly towards RLVann. 4 out of the 5 commissioners has a connection to RLVann. We don't know how long that situation will exist. So I urge you that if you're gonna fight and look for local community support, now is the time. Now is the time. But sometimes when you got one person or 2 people, they can't make changes alone. I always told the boards that I served on a special school. We gave me county 3 because it takes 3 board members to get things moving. We have that connection with RLVann. And I cannot speak for my fellow board members, but I can speak for John Porter. I will always carry into my meetings support for RLVann High School. Go Trojans.
Thank everyone so much for their input. And just thank you for coming out. Transition, Brother Kevin is coming back over here, but I know some of you know software, school. Anybody know anything about that? Old Nova schools. Like, we're on the way to Kevin. Okay, we're gonna start it. Kevin, come on next. How about that?
Okay, everyone, I won't hold you much longer. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we are coming down toward the end. If you have your cell phone, if you pull that up and open your camera, don't take a picture, but just point your camera at it, a link should pop up on the screen. And if you touch the link, don't take the picture. Your camera just needs to be pointed at that. You may need to zoom it in. It will take you to a Google form where you can enter your contact information. There are also teams listed. If you have a skill, a talent, an interest that you can contribute, we want to get you involved. We need people across multiple areas so we can break this down into small chunks and give some of the responsibility of shaping this out to other people. We do have a core group of people who've been meeting up to this point. These committees are a way to begin involving others throughout the community and infusing that work to help us move forward. There's also a very extensive contact list that RLVann Resource Center has. Many of those emails are no longer valid if people have had accounts shut down or gotten new accounts and never updated. So even if you've already gotten your information in, it would be great to just visit this link, put in your information, and we'll have it and be able to start including your support in the project. So there may be some printed copies of this floating around today you can fill out and turn in. There will also be some available at Robert L. Vann for part 2. So hope you have a chance to get that. And if you don't, at least zoom in and take a picture of that code, and maybe you can do that when you can get some help with it. So there is another big part here. I wonder if anybody remembers the words and tune.
Automatically. I believe so. Okay.
I want you to take a look and refresh yourself with the song lyrics. Perhaps there are some other things that need to happen before we officially close out this portion. So I really should turn this over to someone in the room.
Later on, I take
What do you say? What do you need to do?
If you got videos.
What are you trying to do?
The procedures are being recorded and everything. The RLVann NC project.
Hi, greetings to the Ahoskie community from Denver, Colorado. My name is Samuel Odin, grandson of former teacher Mrs. Doris Flood Newsom, and son of Dr. Jacqueline Newsom Williams. How you guys doing? My grandmother was a teacher at RLVann, as well as the alumni. My mother in her former years also attended. I strongly support the community as they work together for a worthy cause, establishing a resource center for the residents of Ahoskie. I am embracing the vision and envisioning the completion of this project.
Laura Dean Freeman, who currently lives in Berlin, Maryland. I attended Robert L. Vann from the 1st grade to the 12th grade, class of 1956. 1st grade teacher, Virginia Hart, and E.K. Pierce was the 12th grade teacher. I played basketball, I was on the modern dance team, I was a majorette, and I was in the band, and I was a drummer. RLVann is where I got my start, and I hope everybody will support the school project. I'm very grateful for all who have contributed to make this reunion the thing that it is. Have a happy life. Be safe.
Hi, my name is Ajane Odin. I'm the oldest son of Dr. Jacqueline Newsom Williams, as well as the oldest grandson of Doris Flood Newsom. I just wanted to lend my support for the Robert Lee Vann Resource Center Revitalization Project for the greater Ahoskie community. Learning that Robert Lee Vann himself was a relative of mine, but I also know that my grandmother, Doris Flood Newsom, was not only an educator at the school for many years, teaching 2nd as well as 6th grade, but she was also a student herself. My mother, Dr. Jacqueline Newsom Williams, was actually a student there for 6 years. So very close to our family, and this project means a lot to us. So I just want to give our support, as well as, acknowledge that this is a very much of a dream come true for many of my family members as well as friends. So thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Brenda McGlone Mitchell and I live in Chicago. I energetically support the RLVann NC project. I believe the project will revitalize the community and carry out the rich legacy and culture of the school. My mother, LaGolia McGlone, first attended Robert L. Vann, then taught there for 30 years plus. And as you know, many of us, thousands of us, received an excellent education having attended there. And so, no matter where we live, near or far, let's roll up our sleeves and offer our ideas, our expertise, and our support. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Virginia Reynolds, and I strongly support the Robert L. Vann project. I grew up in Ahoskie, North Carolina, As a young youth, I so vividly remember the physical ed events, learning how to play soccer, even though we didn't have the facilities, learning how to play racquetball. I think all of the educators there at RLVann during that period of segregation that moved us towards being full-class citizens. I grew up there. My family has a small business there, which is almost 100 years old. Therefore, I strongly support us getting involved in invigorating the community and moving on to create some of the things that were there previously. I so vividly remember my mother going to RLVann to can apples for applesauce. So there are so many things that I remember about Ahoskie, and we look forward to the project and further growth. Thank you.
Hi, this is Ben Hill calling in from Atlanta, Georgia. Wishing all those participating in the RLVann project much success and much enjoyment. My fondest memory, that being my mother, Glennie Holloman Hill, a teacher at RLVann. And then also in the 4th grade, where we were exposed to musical instruments and started participating in what was called the marching band. I moved on to graduate from Ahoskie High School in 1970, but my heart remains with RLVann, my friends, classmates, and family members. Once again, wishing all of those much success and much enjoyment. It's Ben Hill from Atlanta, Georgia, signing out.
I'll put the words up, Kevin.
Most people have no clue that in 2020.
You gonna put the words up?
Everybody chime in now.
One, two, three. I know we had a class.
Okay, that's what okay. All right, ready? Oh no, so schools we magnify your name. The voices now we hear. Your sentence we are proud to claim and love. We lift your praises to the sky, dear Robert Elvin. Your power in the hearts of men shall never die. May you be ever proud, praise the truth and life. Always for you will work and fight in vain.
So we take up the sheets and hope gas line is right up the back or whatever. We got hot dogs, drinks, and chips down in our events. We invite you to go down and tour the site and just walk around and let your vision be fed by what you see and what you want to see done. So thank you so much, everyone, for making a wonderful success. But again, this was the kickoff. That means it's time to sit there and get together and vote, make a plan, and come out and let's put this ball in motion. Okay, thank you so very much.
See you later, Kevin. I'm out.